Well, good morning and welcome to week 2, day 2 of the Elijah Bible study. Again, this is just my summary of Priscilla Shirer's Bible study. So week 2, she labels it my provider, and she says, you will drink from the book, right? And she quotes that from 1 Kings 17:4. So she starts off by reminding us of, God is our ultimate provider. He is the provider, no matter which situation we're in. Even if we got ourselves in that situation or trying to get ourselves out, he's still the provider. She tells us about a story she's recalling when her kids were younger, they would escape to the backyard into the forest, and they would travel, through the forest, and they would come to this almost different world in her kids' eyes and in her eyes. And then they would always end up at this little brook. And she was able to relate that brook to the brook that Elijah has to go to, that he's sent to, because that brook that her and her boys had visited, which if you don't know what a brook is, it's like a creek, and it's something that's seasonal. So it's full in the rainy months and then it's dry in the drought months. And she just remembers seeing that sometimes it's full of water and sometimes it's dry. And, God tells Elijah to go and hide at this brook. And Elijah's probably thinking, a drought's coming. Why do you want me to go hide at a brook? Why not be by a river or, a greater body of water that could sustain itself longer? But Elijah, being Elijah, he has great faith. He listened and obeys and goes and hides at the brook. She reminds us that, brooks are inconsistent. And so she wants you to think right off the bat of some things in your life that are chaotic or inconsistent, things that have proven to be unreliable in your life. And so she says, just write down the first 2 examples that come to mind. So I wrote down my health, because I literally start a new diet every Monday. And I know, though, that my body is a temple and I'm to use it to speak about God. And I can't do that if I'm healthy, right? If I'm unwell. And so it's just something I'm always convicted of, is to get healthier. And then I wrote down structure and routine, because my family doesn't really have any. We go to bed when we want, and we don't, eat always the best. And we're very inconsistent. One minute I'm like, everyone's off technology. And then the next minute I'm like, hey, you can watch technology for 30 minutes. Just let mom have a moment, So we're very inconsistent in those ways. But she wants you to, recall a time, if you've ever resented God in these inconsistent moments, like anything that's been inconsistent in your life, like, have you recognized it, and where do you put your blame? And a lot of people, we blame or question God instead of realizing that he's always there providing for us, even still. So she just reminds us that Elijah obeys going to this brook, even though they've promised a drought, right? The drought's coming. So she reminds us that there are several promises in the Bible itself, and she, has us read over them. She wants us to remember that there are promises throughout the whole Bible that God has promised to us. And so she lists several of them. For example, in Hebrews 13:5, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. In 2 Timothy 4:18, the Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his kingdom. In 2 Corinthians 9:8, God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have abundance for every good deed. And then there's several more, but this one's good too. 1 John 5:14, if we ask anything according to his will, he will hear us. So she's just reminding us that our attitude and the way that we approach things and our actions need to, revolve around these promises. We need to remember that God provides. And so I like how she wrote this one part. The God of oceans made him a promise. You will drink from the brook. So he created the oceans, he created the rivers, but yet he sends Elijah to a tiny brook in a time of drought, and he will still provide. And that was really powerful for me. The last part of day 2, she really just has us just be reminded of, like, when you're lonely, God's your friend. When you're tired, God is your strength. When you're hungry, God is the bread of life. When you're dry, he's the living water. When you're insecure, he's your confidence. And when you're empty, he's your fulfillment. And I think we forget that, right? A lot of times, for example, when you need prayer about something, the first thing you do is go tell 10 people, please pray for me, before you've even prayed yourself. And we're all guilty of that. We have to remember that God is our provision, not the people around us, not even our mentors, or people we really seek as a positive influence in our life. While they can direct us and give us their opinions, they're not our fulfillment. God is. So we have to remember that God's not the person who lets us down, right? He's not human, and he's not lied to us. He doesn't change his mind from the promises that he's made. He's still good, he's faithful, and he will send us to the brook even in a drought, and he'll still provide in that moment. So